You're watching the WPTV To The Point special, the Mast-Pam Keith debate.
Good evening, I'm Michael Williams. Welcome to the debate for Congressional District 18, covering St. Lucie, Martin, and parts of northern Palm Beach County. The candidates, Republican and incumbent Congressman Brian Mast, also an Army veteran, his Democratic challenger, Pam Keith, a lawyer who served in the U.S. Navy as well, in the legal profession there as well, and also independent K.W. Miller in the race as well. The rules for our two major candidates we have aboard with us this night: they'll have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer a question and 45 seconds for rebuttals of direct criticisms. At the end of the nearly hour-long debate, they'll each have 1:15 apiece for closing thoughts. And remember, we're streaming the entire debate on WPTV.com and your favorite streaming app. By virtue of a coin flip earlier this morning, the congressman will have the chance to take the first question. I'll put it to both of you. The House approved a new $2.2 trillion stimulus package last week. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about water policy issues. We want to talk about some of the nasty political ads out there. But we first want to begin with this overall question for you, sir. Why are you the right choice for District 18 when there's so much to navigate in these trying times? COVID, healthcare, jobs, all of that tied into COVID, of course, racial equality, and the angry tone and tenor of our national life. Why are you the best choice, sir?
Michael, every single day that I go to fight for this community, I do it the same way that I did in combat, with every fiber of my being. For every person, any person that comes for our assistance, we look at them as an American and as a constituent, as a friend, as a neighbor, and we do every single thing that we can for them. And to put that into contrast, I believe that my opponent looks at the constituents of this community as a commodity. She said that if you don't give her your vote or you don't give her your money, then she doesn't have to listen to you. And she said of the people in our community, if you're a Republican, you're a racist. Or if you're a Republican, you're a white supremacist. Or our law enforcement, they're the Gestapo, Nazi police that have killed millions of Jews, or called people stupid. There's a sea of difference between the two of us, and I think that's the biggest part of that difference, is how we look at the people in our community, which alters the way that we go out there and fight for the people in our community. And as a result of what she said, I actually believe that she despises half of the people in our community. I would love to know if she actually does.
Ms. Keith, I want to put the same question to you. Why are you the right choice in these trying times? As I said, COVID, the healthcare issues that come out of COVID, issues about jobs, jobs lost, jobs needed, racial equality, and this polarization that we hear every moment and every day. Why are you the best choice for Congressional District 18?
The viewers need to know something very important. On February 5th of 2020, Brian Mast was given an entire briefing on the coronavirus threat, how dangerous it was, how contagious, how deadly, and what kinds of measures were going to be used to contain it. He even engaged the public health experts with questions about what a shutdown would look like. And then he went out and sold $50,000 worth of Uber stock, and shortly after that, bought some stock in an online dental health company. Brilliant financial move. But what he didn't do was tell anybody in CD18 about this. That was February 5th. By February 29th, Donald Trump was publicly calling coronavirus a Democratic hoax and that this was overblown, it was just the flu and it was going to go away. At that time, Donald Trump knew he was lying to us. At that time, Brian Mast knew Trump was lying to us too, and he said nothing. Brian figured out how to take care of his business, but what he did was betray us right here. 210,000 Americans are dead, more than 900 in CD18. 30 million people out of work, an economy absolutely in tatters.
Ms. Keith,
he lied to us, and that's the problem.
I heard both of you say why the other one is the wrong choice. I didn't hear either one of you say why you proactively are the right choice. So let's take another crack at it. You may respond to the criticisms therein, so we'll wind the clock up with 1:15. Why are you the right choice, Congressman Mast?
Yeah, Michael, I think I did on the opening. I said, this is the way that I fight for our community, as I did in combat every single day. It's the way that I go out there and fight for us on water, on coronavirus, on healthcare, on any issue that you ask. I go out there and ask, how can we fight for the people of our community And that's what I do every day, and I'll leave it at that. That's why I'm the right choice. It's what I've done since the moment that this community has given me the honor to represent it, and it's the way that I'll do it right up until the last second that this community says that I can represent it.
Congressman Mast, we'll now go to you, Ms. Keith. Without perhaps, let's see if we can not mention his name for a minute 15. Why are you proactively the great choice with these major issues ahead of us?
Because I have so much better judgment and I am so much more honest. I knew when the science experts told us that coronavirus was deadly to believe them, not Donald Trump. I knew that when we had to take extreme measures that it was up to all of us to stand up for each other and wear masks and socially distance. Brian couldn't figure that out. And I know that when he was lying to us about coronavirus, I was out there warning people that this was something that could absolutely implode our economy. I showed the right judgment and the willingness to tell the people of CD18 the truth. Brian's principal priority was protecting the narrative of Donald Trump, one that was intentionally dishonest, and Brian knew it at the time. That's not just bad judgment, and it's not just dishonesty. It's also fundamentally immoral.
Do you want a 45-second response, sir, to the claim, implicit or explicit, that you profited from knowledge before the coronavirus struck?
No, certainly not. I think she said that I somehow didn't tell anybody about any equity trade that's made on my behalf. We have public disclosures that any time that happens, it is entirely public. We have to write it down every single quarter. This is what happens. Now, when it comes to coronavirus, let's speak about that specifically. The president, in the very beginning, as he was being called xenophobic, cut off travel to China, one of the most important things that was done. And then after the left and Speaker Pelosi and others got done calling him xenophobic, we worked together bipartisanly on 4 stimulus bills, one of them being the CARES Act that my opponent said she would be a hard no on. That bill that had the Paycheck Protection Program and stimulus checks, the work that we've done on SNAP, the work that we've done to go out there and make it so businesses wouldn't have to pay right now into the payroll tax, and what we've done for sick and family leaves, all of those things. And my opponent said she would be a hard no on these things. She actually just said that she despises the word bipartisan, which is the way that we got those things signed into law.
Let's jump into COVID a little bit more specifically and allow you, Ms. Keith, and you can use it to respond or to talk proactively. But the House approved just last week, House Democrats, I should say, a new $2.2 trillion stimulus package. It would have included $600 in weekly new federal unemployment benefits through January, a second round of $1,200 payments for those of you eligible, as well as a $500 check for your eligible dependents, and more money for the Paycheck Protection Program. Congressman Mast, you voted against that. We'll get to that vote in a moment. Ms. Keith, they note that you opposed the initial CARES Act, but that now, along with other Democrats, you want to spend trillions more even though you opposed it the first time around. Where are you on stimulus spending? Why did you oppose it the first time? Where are you now?
Right.
And if you were in the House right now, would you have backed that plan last week?
The reason I opposed the first CARES Act is because it did way too little. People with good judgment knew that when millions of people were going to be out of work and likely losing their health coverage at the same time, they needed more than just enough to put food on the table. They needed enough to pay for prescriptions and other things. CARES Act was too little, which is precisely why we're coming back to the table now. Had they done more initially, we may not have had to come back. Brian had so much enthusiasm when it came to cutting taxes for billionaires, but he didn't have that kind of enthusiasm when it came to helping regular people. And so that kind of judgment is why we are here. Of course, Brian opposes this new package that is going to help people, and he certainly doesn't have any compunction about cutting off help to people who are unemployed. And in Florida, they can't even access those unemployment benefits because of the intentional sabotage of our unemployment benefits system. The truth of the matter is,
But Ms. Keith, just briefly though, you opposed what was a bipartisan vote overwhelmingly on the first CARES Act. His argument is you don't seem to understand the definition of bipartisan. That's his critique. Respond briefly to that critique from the congressman.
I think the problem is that when it goes to fighting for the people, we sometimes as Democrats start a little bit too close to the Republican position to get agreement, and then we move even further to the Republican position. This was a time when we really needed to put the priorities of the people first. not just in making sure that they had money coming to the table, but also making sure that they got health care and many other things. There were a whole lot of Democrats that weren't really pleased with the CARES Act because they knew that this was going to be something that did just the bare minimum and that we would have to be coming back to the table later. Seeing as how coronavirus has expanded and now infects all of Washington, you now see the folly of having to keep going back again and again instead of doing the right thing in the first place.
Congressman, why oppose the new plan by House Democrats last week? So many of your constituents, I could imagine, might be sitting there saying, I could sure use that extra federal unemployment check. I could sure use that $1,200 payment if I'm eligible. I could sure use that $500 check for my dependents. Why oppose it, sir? And if in opposing it, it presumptively says you have another plan, what is it?
So let's go over a couple of things on this bill. One of the biggest sticking points was roughly $1 trillion to bail out state and city governments. An example of this would be money to go to a city like Chicago to bail out their failed pension funds. I don't think that Floridians should have to go out there and bail out Chicago's failed pension funds. But another example of something that I think Ms. Keith fails to realize about the 4 bipartisan bills that we worked together and moved was that there are still hundreds of billions of dollars yet unused from those 4 original stimulus bills to go out there and help with the Paycheck Protection Program or with other things that can help people in our communities. And the other point that I would go to on this is this. My office, myself, and those that work in our office, we've helped over 20,000 individuals since coronavirus has started with paycheck protection loans and help finding assistance with different banks and with unemployment and with the IRS and with Veterans Affairs and a host of other things. And my opponent cannot do that if she looks at people coming into the office and she's saying, you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, you're a xenophobe, you're stupid, you're this. People can't come to her for assistance if that's what she's pointing her finger and calling people in our community. I don't do that. And again, that's one of the most important differences between us and how I was able to help 20,000 people in our community.
Going forward, Ms. Keith, and I'd like 45 seconds from each of you because we're going to go into health care, which of course ties into the COVID issues that so many face in terms of their ongoing health. But let me ask for just 45 seconds. I know it's a lot, but if there was one single policy prescription you'd have going forward if you were elected to the House on how to deal with COVID going forward, what would it be? And then 45 seconds from the congressman. Then we'll dive into health care, which of course is interrelated. You, Ms. Keith, first.
If there's only one thing we could do, it would be a nationwide mask-wearing mandate to contain the spread of the virus and to make sure that we had rapid testing so that test results were reliable and quick. We have watched the news cycle this week and show what a debacle it is when a whole bunch of people get together and feel like they don't need to wear a mask because that's something Donald Trump doesn't want them to do. It's a disaster. People die from this. That is the bottom line. I would like, however, to respond to Mr. Mast's accusation that I just can't represent Republicans. He knows that I wore the uniform just like he did, and both of us served with people from a variety of political backgrounds. You may not know that I spent 25 years as a corporate attorney representing people who are as conservative as the day is long. They hired me to speak up for them and advocate them and did so again and again because they knew I did it with passion.
Ms. Keith,
he has zero track record of representing people of color.
We'll need as we try and keep it on time, and you both are doing an expert job of that, which I appreciate. Congressman Mast, moving forward, and we'll come back to COVID a little later in the broadcast, but moving forward right now, what's the additional policy prescription that you think is most important going forward? And I'd like to keep that limited as we then move into healthcare. Your response, sir.
Yes. So specifically on COVID, Michael, we spoke about how what you just asked about was known as the HEROES Act 2.0, how that was not bipartisan at all. What was also being pushed this week was something that was totally bipartisan, but Speaker Pelosi still wouldn't bring it to the floor. And it was to take those dollars that had already been put towards stimulus, towards assistance, release those dollars so that they can go out into the communities and help with the paycheck protection loans, help with other things. It doesn't take another appropriations. The dollars are already sitting there. It could have happened immediately. There was simply a calendar of time that had run out on the opportunity to use those already appropriated dollars. That would be the number one point that I would say move that forward. To answer to a critique about masks, masks there. Look, Michael, you and I did an interview back in March where I talked about how I protected myself as a bomb technician, time distance shielding as ways to protect from explosives. Obviously not wholly that it works all the time, but I look at the same way for coronavirus, that we protect ourselves with our distance, with the time that we spend with people, and with the way that we shield ourselves from this virus.
We're going to move on. We could, COVID's so critically important, and we could spend the whole hour and a lot more on that, understandably so. Nonetheless, healthcare is a direct component of the coronavirus response. What kind of healthcare coverage Floridians have in our 5-county community and beyond. If President Trump's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett's confirmed, court watchers say the new 6-3 conservative majority could mean a court vote to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You voted to get rid of that Affordable Care Act, Congressman Mast. The Nonpartisan Economic Policy Institute says 2 million plus Floridians lose health coverage if the ACA is ultimately tossed out. Given what's happened with COVID, does that change your mind on getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, sir? And if it does not, what is your prescription for something different?
So let's talk about that. Number one, it's not people being thrown off of healthcare. It's because the individual mandate would no longer exist, that people would choose not to buy this insurance that they have very little choice over, and that in so many cases is so unaffordable. I voted for the American Health Care Act. It protects people with pre-existing condition. It worked to get rid of the individual mandate. And more importantly, it went to provide choice so that people could purchase health care plans across state lines and other things. And if I could say where we differ the most, I would say it's between choice and cost. My opponent's going to say that she wants something that's personal and portable and lifelong, and what that means for her is Medicare for all, a proposal that's $32 trillion over 10 years. That's $3.2 trillion each year. That's roughly $10,000 for every single man, woman, and child that lives in our country today to have what? Less choice, to have the government decide all of your health care like they do for me at the VA. They look at me and they say, your name's Brian Mast. You're going to go to see this doctor in this clinic with this nurse. Doesn't matter if you like where you park or where you have to drive to. That's what it looks like. They're going to decide what cancer treatment is, or what implant it is that you get, or how they give you prescription, or what's cheapest. That's what government health care looks like, and that's why it's the wrong choice. That's why us providing more choice is the correct avenue.
We'll come back to your numbers. We'll let Ms. Keith respond. Ms. Keith, I will say you have told me in previous interviews you want to go beyond the Affordable Care Act. In fact, you want to go beyond where your party nominee Joe Biden is. You said that to me in a summertime interview. He wants to expand ACA access, Affordable Care Act access, or Obamacare, but keep private insurance. You want something different, as the congressman said. Why do you want something different? Why do you go beyond what your party's nominee Joe Biden for the White House, for the presidency, wants? Explain.
Well, I think it's very simple. The coronavirus pandemic has made clear the folly of tying health insurance to employment. Those people who lost their employment under this crisis, that's like 30 or 40 million Americans, are now not just facing a loss of revenue, but a loss of health care as well. I also want to make clear that it's not like an individual congressperson makes or breaks these things. I know that we have to shore up the Affordable Care Act in the near future, and I also know that Brian Mast has done everything he could to destroy that bill. Him saying that it's all about the mandate is nonsense. That was taken out a while ago. What the Affordable Care Act is facing right now is total evisceration, and there is no replace. There's an executive order that doesn't mean anything.
Ms. Keith, though,
and the bottom line is that at a
you have said, though, to me, and I do want you to touch on this, it's so important, you have said you want Medicare for all. Explain, in your words, what you want, why you want it. We'll talk about the price tag with both of you in a moment.
I absolutely do, and I will tell you why. Every other modern country, every first world country provides health care to their citizens as a fundamental right, and I think America should be providing health care as a fundamental right as well. We watch so many people get stuck in jobs they don't like and can't stand. They lose mobility because they have to keep the benefits, and so many businesses can't grow or expand because they have to factor in health care as a key component to whether they can bring on someone else. It is illogical. What we do now is the worst way of doing things. And I find it kind of rich that a guy like Brian Mast, who basically had taxpayers pay for his health care almost the duration of his adult life, somehow has bitterness about government helping people get health care into the future.
Ms. Keith,
we need to make sure that
Yeah, I'm sorry, no, and I know you don't have clocks in your head, and I appreciate it on both sides very, very much. I want to be clear, though, you want to see eventually private insurance go away. You do not believe that at the end of the day we should have private insurance, just yes or no?
Absolutely, yes. I think there's a misnomer out there that people love their private insurance. They love their private insurance more than no insurance or really expensive insurance or bad insurance. But they don't have an experience with something that is personal, portable, and lifelong.
At the end of the day, do you want private insurance to go away? Yes or no?
I don't think you can make private insurance go away. Just like in England, there's private insurance. In Sweden
Bernie
and France,
Sanders
there's
wanted to
private
get rid of
insurance.
private insurance. Do you want Medicare for all for everyone without a private insurance option? Yes or no?
There's, Mr. Williams, there was no such thing as no private insurance option. There are always private companies that add plans to the market, and that is the truth.
No.
There's no such thing as no private insurance at all. There's no such thing.
That wasn't the debate going on vociferously last spring. Nonetheless, in fairness, you mentioned a $32 trillion price tag, but Congressman, PolitiFact said that Bernie Sanders and others, and independent studies suggest doing nothing at all could cost Americans $50 trillion over the next 7 to 8 years, and that your prescription for not making significant change is a prescription for an even bigger burden for Americans than what we might have if we at minimum expanded the ACA or went to some form of limited Medicare expansion. Explain opposition given those numbers.
Yes, so number one, Medicare expansion. Look at what that does to our seniors who have paid into that program their entire life. There's a simple critique on it, on cutting into what it is, the dollars that they've put into the program, now going to everybody else. Ms. Keith made an important point. She said, look at what the rest of the world is doing with healthcare. Let's look at that, and then let's look at where does the rest of the world want to go to in order to get the most innovative healthcare anywhere in the world. They come right here to the United States of America because of the way that we develop things, because of the choice and the private markets that we have that foster the kind of development that the rest of the world wants. That's why that exists, because you get that in the United States of America. That doesn't exist elsewhere in the same way. That's one of the most important things that choice provides, is that opportunity for research and development into medical innovation that cures things like Alzheimer's and cancer, pray to God one day, and other illnesses like that. That's why it's so important that we continue in the way that we have with private insurance in the marketplace, which would not exist with Medicare for all. And to put another point on this, my opponent did say specifically she voted for Bernie Sanders, which tells me that she also supports his plan.
I see you shaking your head. You get a brief 45-second response, then I want to move on to water issues, which are so critically important to your constituency. Yours currently, perhaps yours in the months to come, depending on the outcome. But brief response, 45 seconds, Ms. Keith.
Yeah. Thanks to the judgment of Brian Mast and the dishonesty of Brian Mast and Donald Trump, nobody's coming to America because our coronavirus situation is untenable. And I'll also make very clear that there is all kinds of research and development going on outside of the United States. As we know, the vaccine work is being done outside of the United States as well. There are a few tiny numbers of people who come here for healthcare, but the overwhelming majority of people get healthcare in their countries. And they wonder about us here, that we don't accept that healthcare is a right, and that we have millions that don't get anything at all, which is morally bankrupt. I'm not an enemy of private enterprise in any way, and in every country. There are enterprising companies that can offer new things or different things, new products, but making sure that everybody has something is morally sound, fiscally sound, and lives up to our obligations as leaders of the people, because that's what the intention here is, to make sure that our government is for the people.
Thank you both, and I think this will be an appropriate point. We're going to take a break. One break in the broadcast, come back with another full half hour or more actually, taking up critical water issues that I know both of you talked about, issues about climate change, some political ads that are pretty tough running there right now, inappropriate comments made by both, and of course issues about racial equality and more. Stay with us just on the other side of the break in this special edition of To The Point.